What is the Australian Core Skills Framework? The Australian Core Skills Framework, ACSF, is a measuring tool we can use to describe levels of core skills. The ACSF identifies 5 core skills: reading, writing, oral communication, numeracy and learning. There are 5 levels of performance in each core skill. You can use the Australian Core Skills Framework to identify and describe the LLN levels of learners, the underpinning LLN requirements in a training specification and the relevant work, the LLN requirements of training materials and assessment tasks. There are detailed descriptors for each of the 5 levels of performance which help you identify the LLN levels of a learner, a training specification or a training worksheet. For example, a learner who can only read short, simple texts on familiar topics is probably reading at ACSF Level 1. A learner who can read longer texts with some complexity and several ideas or pieces of information is probably reading at ACSF Level 3. A single learner may have varying levels in each core skill. We call this a spiky profile. For example, a learner may have learning, reading, writing skills at Level 2, oral communication skills at Level 4, and numeracy skills also at Level 2. This spiky profile tells us about the learner's current strengths and helps to identify areas where further support during training may be required. So, for example, when the learner's spiky profile is compared to the level of core skills required to undertake the course, ACSF level in red, it indicates that the learner will need additional skill development or support in learning, reading and writing tasks to make sure they will be able to manage the course requirements. As a vocational trainer, you don't need to be an expert in the ACSF, but it is a very useful tool to help you describe the skills and learning needs of your learners. It can also help you to understand how your training materials and assessments may or may not have appropriate LLN levels. When you understand the ACSF, it's also easier to talk about learners and their needs with LLN specialists.
And basically it allows us to look at work documentation or tasks or units of competency and be able to map that accordingly and know what type of learner would be able to do those things and what skills they need and how we can devise different programs to meet those requirements.